Okay, we are live, but we must let it breathe. Get some of that O2 in you. It's good for you. In fact, got to have it. It's a necessity. Uh, but listen, it is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, as always, my fellow football priest and partner in crime, busy cranking out free agent story and free agent Broncos rumor
Yes, sir.
articles one after the other. Zack Kelberman. Brother Zack, what's going on, dude? First things first, real quick, though. Rumors about the Broncos not being done, might have one big free agent signing left, might be that safety CJ Gardner Johnson, but then maybe not, because you have something new to report to everybody, fresh, like literally on the heels of us going live here tonight.
Unfortunately, it doesn't look like the Broncos will get CJ GJ, who's the Eagles free agent, and it doesn't seem like he might go back to Philadelphia because they brought back PJ Locke. It might end that speculation. You have the article, though, that the Broncos are interested in CJ Gardner Johnson, so maybe doesn't rule him out. To your point, I do think they have one more big time splash move they can make. They have enough cap to do that before they kind of tuck in before the draft. I don't think Gardner Johnson will be that, but Locke comes back as a backup safety, probably behind Simmons or Caden Stearns, and he provides some special teams value as well. A lot of people are fans of his. I'm a fan of his as well. I think he brings a lot of versatility, and they always seem to have the Broncos do one player, like Deshaun Williams, for example, the last couple years, who just keeps coming back to Denver for season after season, and it's kind of goes under the radar. That's PJ Locke now.
Yeah, he's steadily improved, though, over the years. And I think last season in particular was a little bit of a wake up call, kind of, I wouldn't go so far as to call it a breakout season, but he's really earning his keep, and maybe not quite enough, Zach, to justify a restricted free agent tender, which guarantees a specific salary for 1 year, but enough to be brought back as a priority guy within the first week still of free agency. But guys, we have a great show planned, lots of rumors, lots of reactions and stuff still coming in. You might not be apprised of every single signing the Broncos have made this week. You might not be up to date on every single departure, including the aforementioned Deshaun Williams. He's going to be collecting paychecks in Carolina moving forward. So the Broncos ended up losing 2 defensive linemen, getting one back in the form of Zach Allen when you count, of course, Draymond Jones. Lots to get to, but we are excited because it is Thursday. So we're going to kick off what is the second superstar segment of the 2023 offseason for us. And we have a guy who probably needs no introduction, but we're going to do it nonetheless. Albert Noppers, a guy, a supporter who became a friend, he and his wife, Michelle, and even so far as he's gone to do his own podcasting. We've been really excited to have Albert on the show. And here he is. And some of you know him by his new podcast handle or his nickname, Mile High Dutchie, but Albert Noppers in the house. Bro, thank you for making time. How are you?
I am great, and I'm glad and I'm excited to be here because the Broncos have really exciting news, so it can only get better for us.
So let me kick this off real quick, Zach. Things are still morphing. There'll be a transaction here, maybe a player cut there or whatever. Things are going to continue to kind of evolve as we march closer to the draft. But with, I would say, probably the bulk of whatever maneuverings the Broncos are going to do in free agency in the books, how are you feeling? And maybe a better question is, how would you grade the Broncos free agency thus far, accounting for, Albert, both the acquisitions and the departures?
Is that for me or for Zach?
For you.
That's for you, big dog.
No, so I would definitely give them an A. Would I say A plus? Not yet, but definitely not an A minus, and a solid A. Absolutely. I think they have done terrifically. They focused on where they needed to focus on, especially in the offensive line, and that really thrills me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I agree with you. I give them an A as well. There's so many questions I can ask you, Albert. Speaking to the haul they've made, though, what's been your favorite signing and what's been your least favorite signing?
My most favorite signing is that Alex Singleton is now locked in for 3 years. He was our best defensive mind last year, 120 tackles at least. And yeah, what he did on the field, he was a surprise for everybody. And for the previous team that he was with, he was just pretty much thrown away. And he picked it up here just to be a special teamer. And then something happens, and it just clicked for him. And that is one of my most exciting signings. Do I have a least favorite signing? Not really. Because I think whatever they picked up the last 2 days, 3 days, it was all in favor of the team. I'm really, really great about it. Yeah.
What do you make of the Broncos' decision to say, Brett Rippon, thanks for what you've done. We're going to go ahead and let you kind of grow your NFL career elsewhere. And by the way, Jarrett Stidham, here's a few $1,000,000. Come be the backup to Russell Wilson and the fail-safe. So what do you think about their decisions as a team at backup quarterback? Because, of course, we know Russell Wilson is the entrenched starter.
Yeah, so that Brett Rippon is gone, or is he really gone? He might come back. We don't know that yet. But he was a great quarterback. He has a really good mind as a quarterback. But was he good enough to be a backup? And I think in some points it was just not good enough. And does he fit in the system that we are going to play? I don't think so. Michael Stidham, I think he has done a good job as a backup. He is a little bit more seasoned vet, so I think it was a good choice.
Albert, you brought up a good point earlier that it's hard to really dislike any move the Broncos made in free agency. One move that was a little contentious, though, was the rehiring of Vance Joseph as defensive coordinator. Refresh my memory, how do you feel about VJ, and how do you feel about VJ coming back in that role?
Yes, I'm still on the fence on that one. It's apparently Sean Payton sees a really good defensive mind in there. And maybe it is just for one season because he was able to pick up some players that might not have come without VJ. So
Sure.
who knows? We will see.
Billy, yes, reminding everybody, subscribe, make sure you're following and or subscribing, like the video. If you appreciate the extra mile thing you could do is to share it out there. All right, what you see on your screen. And a message here from your homie at Rocky Mountain Sports, Keith, jumping in. What's up, brother? Giving a shout out to Albert. Very exciting. So, all right, we want to pick your brain on a couple of things. We talked a little bit about already this week's free agency, Albert, but being that this is a superstar segment and coming from Broncos country, being dyed in the wool, I want to make it a little bit more of a meta macro conversation relative to the Broncos and free agency. And I don't know if you caught the superstar segment last week with Michaela Parker, the Duchess, but I'm going to ask you the same question. All right, I'm going to serve it up nice and easy. And that is, let's say 2018 as the cutoff. What has been the Broncos' best free agent signing since 2018? And kind of like the one Zach asked you, what has been the one that still keeps you up at night, the worst?
Oh, what keeps me up? It doesn't keep me up anymore, but no Brow James. That was one of the worst signings ever. How many millions did he get for only 2 plays? Two starts? So, yeah, that was one of the worst ones. One of the best free agent signings? I have to think about that one.
Yeah, since 2018, so it kind of limits it. It takes away the Super Bowl 50 hero free agent class of 2014, right? The year before Super Bowl 50, but go on.
Yeah, probably Kareem Jackson. He has been pretty decent. Was he great? Not really. But I think we got more success through the draft than picking up free agents.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want Kareem back, though, real quick? And then Zach, go ahead.
Nope.
I was going to say it's pretty telling when Kareem Jackson's your best signing in 5 years. Speaking of free agency, while we're on the topic, though, Albert, if the Broncos do, and they do have the salary cap, I think they have about $10 million. They can restructure a couple players and get 20 million more. So they have enough for one more splash. Where would you like to see that allocated? Would you like a Gardner Johnson? Would you like, it's either for me, Gardner Johnson or Ben Jones. Center is still up in the air. I don't want Cushenberry coming back in that starting role. So if they can grab a Ben Jones, they can grab a Gardner Johnson. I think that would be the cherry on top of the haul going into the draft.
Absolutely, we need a center. Cushenberry is not going to do it, even although they have reinforced the front line, but he will be the weakest link. So yeah, and if it is not center, I would say let's get a decent edge, because we only have 3 of right now as it stands, pretty decent, and Benito and Browning still have to come into their role. So I think we need another, pretty seasoned edge guy, and I think that would be, and bring Shelby Harris back for the D line. Why not?
Why not?
I would.
Why not? Indeed. I mean, they do have more holes to fill, Zach, on the defensive line. Real quick shout out, Keith throwing down some stars. He said this one's for Albert and Superstar Thursday. Indeed, check out what these guys do on their podcast, Denver Broncos Roundup, which is on the Rocky Mountain Sports Network. All right, Albert, I think we got one more, and it's kind of a riffing off this super chat here from the Mile Highlander himself, Steve Armstrong, jumping in with a very generous super chat. He's saying, I still want a big splash player. Priest, thank you for keeping us up to date, and I'm excited to see the comeback season. Welcome to the show, Albert Noppers. Buckham with a B, MHH for life, state of being, and don't mess with Broncos country. So thank you, Steve. You're a prince. Really appreciate you, big dog. What say you, though, Albert? Do you feel like this is, are you kind of pining for one more big high-profile signing?
Oh, yeah. Right now, there are some rumors going on that there's a cornerback available, and I think we can have another cornerback, because that wouldn't hurt. We have a really good one in PS2 and a player coming up, but having a little bit of seasoned veteran there, why not?
Albert, one more question really quickly. The smoke is going to turn into fire, I feel like, and the Broncos are going to trade a receiver, if only to get capital back or clear a contract off the books. You agree, though, with me anyway, that the receiver, if they do have to trade one, it should be Courtland Sutton. They should do everything in their power to retain Jerry Jeudy. You agree?
Absolutely. But if somebody offers us 2 first-round picks, then
it's, see you, Jerry. But
then bye-bye, Jerry. Because we can get another one from the draft and pick one in the first round with a draft. So yeah.
Phil saying good evening, giving you some props here. Thank you, Phil, down in Tucson. Great legendary figure in our midst here. Appreciate you, Phil. Albert, give our best to Michelle. We love you guys and appreciate everything that you do and your contributions to Broncos country and the support from MHH. But I'm hoping that we get to see you again this fall for the 3rd consecutive year in a row for the MHH meet and greet. I'm hoping.
Yep. And so are we.
Okay. Dope. He is Albert Noppers. He has a podcast on the Rocky Mountain Sports Network with Keith, and it's called Denver Broncos Roundup. So check it out, guys, on Facebook as well, too. Albert Noppers, a.k.a. the Mile High Dutchie. Love you, big dog. Can't wait to talk to you next time, and have a good night.
And let's run them flat.
Yeah, baby.
Thanks, Albert.
Thanks, Albert. We'll talk to you soon, big dog. There he goes. Albert Noppers. Shout out coming too from Gary Palmer, who knows Albert, has crossed paths with Albert at the meet and greets. Shout out Chad, Zach, and Albert. Go Broncos. Love it, dude. Albert has become one of, and his wife, Michelle, people that we met as listeners and fans of the show that have become near and dear to our hearts and friends as much as they are listeners. So shout out to everybody in the Noppers fam. Michael Ronquillo throwing down. Good to see you, big dog. Appreciate the support as always, my friend. And I still love that Buckham t-shirt. They're still moving. They're still freaking selling like hotcakes. So thank you guys. Those of you who have purchased the Buckham t-shirt, love it. Thank you. If you haven't, Links in the description. Go get yourself one. We got one here from Gula Maples. Apologies if I'm screwing up your name.
Gyla
Maples. Very generous super chat. Settle the issue for us though in the chat, and if you can phonetically type out how we pronounce your name. But welcome and thank you. Very generous from the top rope. Awesome, Zach.
Yeah, that's super generous, and definitely if you have a question or a comment, we want to interact with you. We appreciate your generosity. Thank you.
Scott confirms Gyla. Awesome.
He said
Loyal the smoking hustler in the house with the super chat. Love it. Loyal says, love the Samaje signing. You watch, he will be running through for first downs and touchdowns. Go make a splash at cornerback or center. What do you think? First of all, the Pirine signing is a sneak, kind of a sleeper. I think some Bronco fans maybe kind of slept through it a little bit. They're like, wake us up when it's a bigger name or, high profile guy. But when you flash forward to the season, I'm telling you guys, you're going to be so stoked and grateful that the Broncos brought this guy. I'm really interested, Zach, to see what designs Sean Payton has for him in this scheme, because, he might not be the second coming of, the greatest pass catching running back of all time, but he's pretty dang good at it, and he's a bruiser.
A lot of people also said, wake me up when Javonte gets healthy, and I only want him. But, if you like Javonte, you're going to love Samaje Perine, and you're absolutely right, Chad. He might go down underratedly as the Broncos' best signing of the entire haul because he's so good at everything. He's so good as a runner, such power, such tenacity. He's good as a pass catcher, and he's good in pass blocking as well. He's a good team guy. He's also a very funny guy. He lifted a car. I can't remember when he did that, but he was asked about it, and he goes, well, it was a smart car. So I like everything about him as a person, as a player, and he goes, he's going to go a long way for the Broncos offense this season.
So on that same subject, by the way, George in the house, brother, jumping in, legendary Mount Rushmore super chat superstar of old, back on his feet, feeling strong, feeling impervious to life's vicissitudes. George, give our best to Jasmine. I hope you're feeling good today, big dog. He says, just because it's been a while. And hey, dude, did you get one of these? I'm pretty sure you did. Did you get a Bridge the Gap LP? Because guess what? They are in stock, baby. And the album comes out next week. Stoked. I know you got one of them, either the CD or the LP. I don't recall. But George, it's great to see you, big dog. On that previous super chat, Zach, what's the biggest, like if you could just wish list it right now, all right? One more move that the team could make. Would it be center? Would it be safety? Would it be cornerback?
God, man, like part of me, like the fun side of me wants the Broncos to have that no-fly zone back, and the idea of pairing C.J. Gardner-Johnson with Simmons and Pat Surtain, Damari Mathis, Caden Stearns, that's pretty tantalizing. But I think the right thing to do, if they were to make one more big move, is to get that center position addressed and not rely on either Cushenberry or Wattenberg or a rookie. They need to protect Russ at all costs, and the way he stands in the pocket, a lot of pressure comes right up the middle. Ben Jones is a freaking wall. He's an Iron Man. He plays through everything. I don't know if he's going to retire. I don't know what he's doing, what he's up to. I don't know if the Broncos made an offer, how much he's looking for. But if they could, I would love a Ben Jones signing.
Yeah, I wonder what the latest is, because I would think on the subject of whether or not he might retire, I would think by now he would maybe have already made that decision, or at least announced that decision.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So he's got to still be in the wind, and if he's still in the wind, Broncos, take a hard look at that for sure. Okay, jumping back into the chat a little bit. Greg Smith, what's up, big dog? Giving some props to the Mile High Dutchie. Good to see. Guyla saying, thanks for keeping us up to date. Things are moving fast. Yes, they are. It's one of the funnest periods on the NFL calendar this week. George Fox, appreciate the stars, as always, my friend, on Facebook. He says, do you see us going after the safety from the Eagles? Dem Bronx for life. MHH, hit the thumbs up, guy. Yes, bro. Thank you for always reminding everybody. Hit the thumbs up. So in case you didn't miss, or in case you missed the top of the show, the Broncos have been linked to C.J. Gardner-Johnson, the co-interception leader in the NFL last year with Simmons, Justin Simmons. They've been linked to him through multiple rumors and reports. The Broncos are interested, et cetera, et cetera. But Zach, you had a little bit of an update both on where he stands maybe with the Eagles, and then of course Broncos re-signed PJ Locke. So now they have a little bit of a cushion. It's unclear at this point whether or not the Locke re-signing was just basically them plugging the hole and that's their answer. They've got Caden Stearns, they got PJ Locke. They'll go find another young guy in the draft or whatever. Or if it was, hey, we've got our depth now. We've got Caden Stearns, we'll see what happens. We got PJ Locke, we'll see what happens, but we still need a bona fide starter. Don't know yet, Zach, but what does your gut tell you?
They also have Delarian Turner-Yell, who they used a draft pick on last year. So, the more people they sign, the less chance it becomes that they go after CJ, who might want to reset the market and look for money the Broncos simply won't offer. Not at this stage of free agency, not after what they've already shelled out. I'd love to have him, though. I mean, to get his playmaking ability, like I said, pair it with both Simmons and Surtain's Amari Mathis, you can really have the no-fly zone 2.0 under VJ. I've covered this situation in Philly pretty closely on Twitter. I've waded into Eagles Twitter, which is no place anyone should want to go, and he's not happy. He said today in a deleted tweet, I took a screenshot though, the disrespect is real. You have to wonder what that means. Philadelphia managed to bring back James Bradbury and now Darius Slay, and they paid Slay a pretty penny. Maybe not enough money to go around for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. He played for Sean Payton in New Orleans. Why not come to Denver and do it big?
I mean, he was drafted by Sean Payton in New Orleans, and it is kind of interesting that he's still kind of languishing on the open market, because if you read any of the ubiquitous top 100 free agent lists, Zach, around the NFL, whether it was the ESPN list, Sports Illustrated, NFL.com, PFF, he was usually a top 10 to top 15 ranked free agent in this class, and yet he's still chilling out there unsigned. I have a hunch that it might have something to do with what you just mentioned, the pull to come back to Philly, unfinished business, but then they're spending all this money on two other DBs, and yet they're still probably trying to keep the seat warm for him somehow while they're figuring things out. Meanwhile, if he doesn't return to Philly, he probably would want to go to Denver, where he could reunite not only with Sean Payton, but also get the chance to play next to Justin Simmons. I mean, could you imagine that as a safety tandem? Golly. So there are reasons, what I'm getting at, that he's probably still out there, which probably boiled down to his own choosiness. Like he's waiting to see which of his two more ideal situations maybe open up.
I think he might have also overvalued himself as a free agent, and he might be looking for money that's simply not there. There was, though, if any of y'all are on Twitter too much like I am, and social media, he followed on Instagram a bunch of Broncos players on the Broncos team account itself, and then unfollowed them after it got out on Twitter. There was that. But the other point I want to make is if they don't land CJ, and that would be the great cherry on top, right? But if they don't, I am perfectly fine, Chad, supposing he's healthy, that the Broncos give the starting job to Caden Stearns and see what he can do on a full-time basis opposite Simmons. We haven't gotten that chance yet, and every time we've seen Stearns in glimpses, he's made plays. What he can do next to Simmons could be just as high ceiling as C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
By the way, Keith, I've got a Bridge the Gap LP waiting for you. Well, I'll put a nice little message on it and hit you with a link when the album actually drops next Friday. The Duchess throwing down. Love you, Michaela. Seriously, so generous. She says, great job, Albert. Much love to all. What do you think about trading Jerry Jeudy? I say no way. I'm gonna kind of echo what Albert said, which has basically been the general posture of this podcast for weeks, which is 2 second-round picks. Adios. See ya, Jerry. It's been real. That's not going to happen, though. And I doubt, Zach, it would even be a first-round pick, because I don't know. When's the last time you can remember an NFL team giving up a first-round pick on a wide receiver who is yet entering his fourth year, who's still never even produced a 1,000-yard season? And I don't say that to throw shade at Jeudy, but putting his value realistically in perspective. He is young though, so that kind of counts against what I'm saying. What is he, 23? I think he's still very, very young. So if you believe he's on the upswing and that stretch performance he had from whatever it was, like week 14 on in Denver last year was the tip of the iceberg, then maybe he's easily worth a first round pick to some team. But I'll believe that when I see it, just because, kind of like with CJ Gardner-Johnson, people are a little bit reluctant to go too far out on a limb on 1 year wonders or guys who peaked in a contract year. And especially a guy like CJ, Zach, who had all that production in 12 games, never produced anything close to that in his previous seasons as a pro.
First off, evergreen comment here. Thank you so much, Michaela. You're amazing. Your generosity each and every time is truly incredible. Thank you. Number two, I think we all agree the Broncos should hold on to Jerry Jeudy. He's, to me, an extension candidate, not a trade candidate. He's your best receiver. And even if this is where I think I might be in the minority, even if they get a first round pick offer, I still wouldn't pull the trigger. 2 first round picks or a first and a second, yeah, but just one, what would you be accomplishing? You're taking away an ascending player and you're opening another hole on offense. You don't have another receiver like him. If you trade Cortland Sutton, you have Tim Patrick. If you trade Jerry Jeudy, who do you have? Montreal Washington? And you would be gambling. Let's say you use that first round pick on a receiver. You're gambling that receiver is going to be anywhere near what Jerry Jeudy is or could be. So I don't like the idea at all, Chad.
Yeah. It's questionable. Albert Noppers saying 300 stars symbolically for the 3 meet and greet. So that is, thank you, bro. That is his guarantee. He's going to be there at the meet and greet. We want to see as many of you there as possible as well when the time comes. We do not have that booked quite yet. Malcolm, thank you, brother, on Facebook, because we don't know exactly what the schedule is going to be yet. So Malcolm says, hey, guys, what else can we do to make a splash and solidify our defense to take the AFC West? So if we're talking about solidifying the defense, for me, Zach, as much as it would be nice to go out and get a CJ Gardner-Johnson or add a little cornerback depth, maybe one more pass rusher. One more like bona fide edge guy, because Zach Allen's an inside out guy. Like, he can put his hand in the dirt and rush, but he's not exactly a twitched up, 2-point stance. He's not a Randy Gregory. He's not a Von Miller. What is he? He's 269 pounds, something like that, 6'4". So he's closer to what Derek Wolfe was as a player, an impact guy for this team, which is not nothing. That's going to be huge for Denver. But a true edge guy to complement that, I still wonder if the Broncos have the horses, pun intended, beyond Randy Gregory. I guess including Randy Gregory, just because dude has a hard time staying on the grass.
Everyone's talking about Zach Allen, but no one's talking about Chris Allen, who the Broncos got as a UDFA outside linebacker. He spent the year in mothballs, but he could make an impact in year 2. It has to be either a CJ Gardner-Johnson type. I don't see another cornerback available after Slay was re-signed that I would, throw big money at. Maybe a Calais Campbell. Derek Wolfe is openly recruiting him to Denver and telling VJ you should go after him. Maybe we talked about with Albert Shelby Harris. Would he be open to a reunion? He still has good play left in the tank, and you'd be getting him back for a fifth of what he cost on his previous contract. It's got to be, though, either defensive line depth, secondary depth, or edge rushing depth.
Again, though, Malcolm, thank you, big dog. Very, very generous of you. A newer star supporter. So thank you, my brother. I'm kind of interested in the possibility of seeing if Shelby would be keen on coming back here. Not at anything too crazy price-wise, but he just always had a knack for making plays in Denver. Didn't work out for him the way he wanted to in Seattle, but he's out there. Keith wants to know, does Greg Dulcich, second-year tight end, need to step up his blocking game to see the field on a consistent basis, and is Albert O all but gone? I don't think Albert O, thanks Keith, is all but gone, because he's got this one last year left on his deal. So I think he's going to have a place in Sean Payton's offense. We'll see. But same with Dulcich. You think back to some of those tight end packages that Payton ran in New Orleans throughout the different eras of his tenure. And Jimmy Graham, dude doesn't know how to block, right? So usually they would have other means and other counters to when Jimmy was on the field to figuring out blocking, whether that's sometimes having two tight end sets or back staying into chip or whatever. So he does, Dulcich, need to continue to improve his blocking, obviously, to maximize his potential to stay on the field. But Zach, if you can get a Dulcich or an Alberto, probably more likely a Dulcich, to really master that domain on top of what he brings to the table as a receiver, then you suddenly have what it could be a very, very, very valuable tight end and maybe even a superstar to be in a Sean Payton offense.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really excited to see what Dulcich can do. Any offensive player, if anyone succeeded in Nathaniel Hackett and Alton system, I can't wait to see them under Sean Payton. Alberto reminds me a little bit of like the Caden Stearns of offense. We've seen him in glimpses. We haven't seen him get any sort of meaningful run. He was in Hackett's doghouse. He was in Vic Fangio's doghouse. I want to see what he can do in a Payton offense. But I think people put too much emphasis on blocking for Dulcich. Let's let him be what he's going to be. You know, if he's not the best blocker, oh well, he's still a great receiver down the middle, through the seams, a reliable target for any quarterback. If you want a blocking tight end, the Broncos just signed one of the best in the NFL in Chris Manhertz. He's a sixth offensive lineman. He'll be on the field the same time as Dulcich, let's say. Then what do? You have extra blocking and you have a receiving threat. So all these combined, the sum of their parts, could be very intriguing this season.
We have a very interesting topic that Michaela is wanting to plumb here. Thank you. Super chat number 2 for tonight. Love you, Michaela. And it kind of plays into some wide receiver conspiracy theories. She says, Zach, what do you think about the fact that Denver made a play for Alan Lazard? So the rumor has it, multiple reports, Broncos went in big trying to get him. Didn't work out. He signed elsewhere. Zach, if the Broncos would have been successful in getting him here, would that then have signaled they had a deal on the table for either Judy or Sutton that they were ready to take the second he agreed to terms?
100%. They made a very aggressive pursuit of Lazard, former Packers receiver who ended up signing with the Jets. And I think the Broncos dodged a major bullet because he got $44 million over 4 years from New York. I'm not paying Alan Lazard $11 million a year when I'm still wanting to invest later on in Jerry Jeudy, and I already have 2 big contracts in Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton. But you're absolutely right. I think it means that they're willing to move on from Sutton. They're just waiting for the right offer. I don't think anything has come in for what they're looking for. Let's say they want a 3rd-round pick. They haven't gotten that yet, but they're willing to make the deal when it comes through. But they really, according to Jordan Schultz of The Score, the Broncos valued Lazard's toughness and route running. So make of that what you will.
Yeah, I think that was a tender mercy of the football gods that he didn't land here, at least if it was going to be a contract in that realm. But again, look, all these rumors and different things, if the Broncos end up going to camp with a wide receiver core featuring Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, we can hope a healthy KJ Hamler, a second-year Montreal Washington, and 2 young athletic pass-catching tight ends. That portends well for Russell Wilson hitting the ground running in his first year with Sean Payton. That would be, I think, still ideal. You would have to really offer up something unique to the Broncos to shake up that potential skill position smorgasbord. James, bro, jumping in, the Predator. Brother, thank you. He says, just joined. Did we sign C.J. Gardner-Johnson? I heard a rumor we might. Yeah, there is a rumor that the Broncos are interested, and I think it's true because there are other circumstantial evidences that point to it, including CJGJ. That's hard for me to say for some reason. Following various Broncos on social media as if he was expecting to soon be signed. So I don't know exactly what the answer is there, but it's still in the wind. He hasn't signed, but it is important to remember, James, that the Broncos did within the hour or two before we went live here tonight, re-signed PJ Locke. So we'll see.
The more I think about it now, I was super hype when Aaron Wilson reported that the Broncos are among the teams interested in C.J. Gardner-Johnson. This other teams weren't specified though, and this comes amid the, I guess, squabbling between himself and Philadelphia's front office. I'm thinking maybe he floated the Broncos as a leverage ploy. I hope they have legitimate interest. I hope they would pursue him. I've been trying to manifest that on Twitter. For those who follow me, know that each and every day. But if he wants top of the market money, Chad, the Broncos can't afford to pay two safeties of all positions top market money. They already have a lot tied up in Simmons.
Look, if push came to shove, I'm gonna grab this because it kind of ties in with Josh. He says, and thank you for the stars, Josh. Did you see our first pick on? You see our first pick on center or Wattenberg? I just don't see a monster O line with little Cush in the middle. So he's saying, is our first draft pick going to be a center, or Zach? Could it be a guy like Ben Jones? I would rather the Broncos put the money in a guy like Jones than a safety like Gardner Johnson, who I'm sure could come in here and do some really good things, but you've got some backup options that could step in. I mean, Caden Stearns, before that hip, I mean, he was showing true impact potential. I mean, ball hawk, had one game with 2 takeaways. I mean, the dude was really starting to show out. So I would rather, if you're going to make one more addition that's relatively high profile, go get a guy like Ben Jones, and then you don't have to worry about hedging on Wattenberg or Cushenberry. In fact, you could cut one of them loose.
I want to make this comment about Stearns. You and I have been two of his bigger proponents, especially, speaking for myself,
Yep.
I've been wanting him to start over Kareem Jackson for the longest time now. And if CJ, I want him to sign with the Broncos, but if he wants too much money, I have no problem saying, forget you. I'll start Caden Stearns and I'll go to war with him opposite Simmons. My only concern that no one seems to be talking about is that his hip injury last year, not only season ending, I heard rumors that it was possibly degenerative. And that can be a thing that can cut short a career pretty fast. So I don't know his medicals, but if they are still up in the air, it makes sense to go after a player like Gardner Johnson. About center, though, the Broncos have went this far already, signing McGlinchey, signing Powers. Why not just finish the job and get a veteran right in the middle? Ben Jones is reliable. You can feel safe running the ball with him in pass protection. It comes down to his medicals as well. If he wants to play the money he's looking for, I don't trust Little Cush or Wattenberg at all as a starter.
Man, could you imagine an O-line of Bowles, Powers, Jones, Miners, McGlinchey? Oof.
Nasty.
Charms jumping in with the super. Thank you, my friend. Saying trade Cortland and KJ Hamler. Let Jalen Virgil play the speedy receiver and go out and get Odell Beckham Jr. Thoughts? What would you say to that, Zach?
Okay, let's dissect this one point at a time. I don't have a problem trading Sutton if the Broncos get a third or better for him. And I might be in the minority here. I want to hold onto KJ Hamler, hope and pray he stays healthy and see what he can do in a real offense with better quarterbacking and using his strengths, which is speed. I agree with you. Play Jalen Virgil more, play Montrell Washington more at receiver or a gadget type player to get his speed involved. But OBJ for what? He's looking for reportedly $20 million a year. Even if you get him for 15 or 14, it's still way too much for a player that's simply past his prime. I'd rather invest that into Jerry Jeudy or invest that money elsewhere, like center or like safety.
Indeed. Well said. Couldn't have said it better myself. Charms, thank you, my friend. Appreciate you. I see one from Patriot Text jumping in. Thank you. It's good to see you. Saying, not been able to watch live much lately or send chat money. It's all good. We're just stoked. We get you when we can. Please tell me the Broncos are not trading Jerry Jeudy away after he finally has started to pay dividends. We need to add talent, not subtract it. Yeah, it really comes down to, like, look, how big of a deal is it that you don't have a first and second round pick this year? Knowing that you made those deals, you knew when you acquired Russell Wilson what that was going to do to your draft standing, and you knew that when you traded to acquire the rights to Sean Payton what that was going to do. I agree, generally speaking, with the idea, unless you're getting a king's ransom for Jeudy, no, you hold on to him. And I think at the end of the day, that's how it's going to shake out, unless a team like New Orleans wants to go, or New England wants to go crazy on Jerry Jeudy. Like, it's the last missing link to them being title contenders again, which I don't think Bill Belichick honestly believes as much as he may covet Jerry Jeudy, according to reports.
I mean, the Pats went out and gave Juju, I think, $33 million. So I don't know that they're still a viable. And I don't see Bill Belichick overpaying, a first and a second for a player like Jerry Jeudy, who's had attitude issues in the past and injury concerns and drop issues. Not a very Belichick type player. I understand the Broncos need to acquire more draft capital. That's why I'm okay if they want to move off from Cortland Sutton. But what really, if you go into the draft, let's say starting in the third round, what is the biggest hole the Broncos have? If it's center, which it is, the most glaring hole, you can find centers in the middle rounds. They don't have to be first or second round picks. So the beauty is George Paton and Sean Payton have done such a bang up, amazing job of plugging the Broncos' biggest holes and allowing them to go into the draft pretty much worry free.
We need to bring the Mad Fanatic back on the show. It's been a while. Wasn't it the COVID year when we had Mad Fanatic on the show? We need to bring you back on, my dog. He's saying people act like Caden Stearns ain't nice. Well, listen, we're as we mentioned earlier in the show, brother. We're probably two of the higher guys in the realm on Caden Stearns, but it's important to remember he's got 5 career starts. And as much as he has flashed, and you might hope to be able to count on him, it's probably still a little early in the wake of that hip injury that Zach mentioned. There's been whispers that it could be a more serious thing and lasting thing. A little too early to just go, pencil him in as Kareem's replacement. It might end up shaking out that way. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it shakes out to where Stearns takes over as the guy next to Simmons, and health willing goes on to do some really good things. But I think that's why the Broncos might end up hedging a little bit, just because you got all those factors, right? Not quite enough sample size to get out over your skis, and then coming off that injury.
And that's the only thing for me, man. Like, obviously, he's still under pretty cheap team control. He's been a playmaker when he's on the field. He actually has coverage ability, unlike Kareem Jackson. It's just the hip thing. Anytime a player has a season-ending injury, anytime there's whispers of it being degenerative or maybe career-harming, you raise an eyebrow. And the temptation of going after arguably or inarguably a better player, indisputably, in CJ Gardner-Johnson, you got to at least, think if you can make that happen. But again, if Gardner-Johnson wants too much money or he's not interested, I have no problem, assuming he's healthy, no problem giving the position full-time over to Caden Stearns, because you're right, Matt Fanatic. He's nice. He's very nice.
James with Super Chat number 2. Thank you, bro. He says, Denver has the best defense in the league for being on the field more than the offense every single game. What they did last year was spectacular. All we need is an average offense for +4 wins over what we did last year, right? Well, there are a few moving parts year over year, right? You got some personnel going out, some personnel coming in, and then you've got an entirely new defensive mind in newish, I guess, in Vance Joseph. So I agree that who could argue against the fact, Zach, that the defense has been carrying the water for this team dating back to including the Super Bowl season. Since 2015, the defense has been carrying that water. But is it going to be, an average offense is going to provide +4 wins over what the Broncos finished with last year?
I don't know about solely the offense. I mean, let's say a top 15 offensive line, a top 15 quarterback, that would get the Broncos, I think, a few more wins in close games. I mean, look at the Kansas City game from last year. A better offense would have probably won that game and ended that godforsaken streak. I think the bigger catalyst here for the plus in their win column will be coaching. I mean, when you have a buffoon on the sideline like Nathaniel Hackett looking as red as a tomato, having no idea what's going on, and can't even get the punt return needed on the field, for example, or can't get the play call in time, and the opposing fans are counting down the play clock at home. That should never happen. He proved to be one of the more incompetent coaches in NFL history. The good thing is Sean Payton is the antithesis of incompetent. He's an adult, and he's the first adult the Broncos have had in that room since Gary Kubiak. Solely alone on coaching, Chad, the Broncos will be improved in the win column.
James, again, thank you, my friend, saying Sutton, Patrick, Hamler, get Hopkins first round. I'm not sure what the first round thing, where he's going with that, but you want to see DeAndre Hopkins, Zach, in the orange and blue?
No, I mean, what are you giving up to acquire him? With what assets are you trading? And you're taking on a player who's coming off not only a suspension, but also an injury. He's also older. He's getting older. He's getting to be over the hill. I just invest that money either in the players that you have in Jerry Jeudy, or invest the money elsewhere, like at center or at safety.
We're at 45 minutes, so we're starting to wind down the show. Any burning topics, questions, comments, get them in the chat now, because then we got to dip. Like Renardo, golly, gee whiz.
Wow.
That's me doing the best I can not to curse on the show tonight. Renardo, dude, you have been going off lately, bro. Hats off to you, my friend. Love you. Thank you so much, dude. I mean, maybe 3 hands you can count the 200 club, maybe 2 hands the 300 club, but Renardo's already in the most elite of clubs, and he keeps adding to it, bro. Thank you. Says, good night, Priest. I was disappointed that we re-signed Alex Singleton. I know he racks up a lot of tackles, but they never seem like game-changing plays. Wow, Renardo, dude, seriously, pardon me. Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much. Zach, your thoughts on Renardo, his generosity in the topics here?
I mean, first of all, Renardo, I mean, what is there to say? You're turning me as red as your comment showing on the screen because I'm so humbled, and so is Chad and Scott and everybody else. What is there to say with that sort of generosity? Nothing except thank you from the most humblest parts of my being. Singleton, I don't hate it. I didn't like the acquisition at first. I thought he was the same thing as Josie Jewell. I just think he brings a little more to the table than Jewell, and I was thinking of what that is, and it's reliability. Consistency. You don't have to worry about him going in and out of the lineup. You don't have to worry about him getting injured. He shows up. He's a lunch pail player. He loves being in Denver, and you know he's a shore tackler. It's not that I fault him necessarily. I still fault the Broncos, Chad, for not doing better in the middle of their defense than the same player in Jewell and Singleton. I still want to see a dynamic inside linebacker now next to Singleton.
I agree that as productive as he was sideline to sideline, just racking up tackles, that you're going, well, where are the game-changing plays? And they don't have to be interceptions. Zach, they can be forced fumbles. They can be fumble recoveries. They can be, a big strip sack on a blitz and things like that.
Or a
But
3rd and 1 stop.
yes, 3rd and 1, tackle behind the line of scrimmage or whatever. I think, though, for a guy like Singleton, one thing to keep in mind, Renardo, is, he was signed last year to a 1-year deal, and he was not even the starter going into the season. He was the backup to Jonas Griffith. And so, he's learning a new scheme. He's kind of getting his bearings, so to speak. I think for him to produce at the level that he did in the face of those different obstacles, for lack of a better term, is why he got paid. I mean, he did a lot. But now that he's a little bit more established in the city and, maybe a little bit learning curve with this new scheme coming in, but he's going to have the whole off season. He knows what it's like playing next to Josie Jewell. And now he's been given that paycheck. What is it? 5X just in year one? No, the whole value of the deal actually is something like 5X of his previous to date career earnings. So he's feeling the love. And with that comes confidence. With that, he sinks his roots a little bit more. So maybe what I'm getting at is you can expect Renardo to see, hopefully we can, some more of those game-changing type plays now that he's gotten paid.
Yeah, and Albert brought up a really good point that I've been thinking of with Singleton for a while watching him play. He was a 2-time team leading tackler in Philly, and they just let him walk and discarded him like he was nothing. And the Broncos picked him up on basically a prove-it deal, and what does he do? He comes in and leads the Broncos in tackles. You think the Eagles would have said to themselves, maybe we have something here. That's twice now he's leading us in tackles. We should hold on to this guy, but their loss was the Broncos' gain. And you make a really good point as well about Singleton. He's not the type that would get paid and check out. He's the type that would get paid and be so appreciative and so loyal to the team that finally invested in him, and the Broncos did that. So He has the best attitude in the world. He's always smiling. He's consistent. He's reliable. Scott made a point in the side chat that we have, the private side chat, that Singleton hasn't really missed a game in his career. I mean, I like that type of player compared to Josie Jewell.
Yeah. And he's just a small school guy that is kind of like the same perception that Chris Harris Jr. had to overcome over the years, which is, they don't believe that you've got it in you. And even when you're proving it out on the grass that they've got it, that you've got it in you and that you're a force to be reckoned with, they're waiting for the first possible chink in the armor to say, yep, there's a reason why you either didn't go undrafted or were a late round pick or whatever. And so I think there's something to that, Zach, as far as him going, all right, I fought and I clawed to get this opportunity, and the Broncos paid me. They said, prove it. I proved it. They paid me. I'm going to go out there. It's going to be blood, sweat, tears. So I'm stoked to see what he does this year. Adam, what's up, bro? In Australia, the land of Oz, as watching the podcast religiously. Welcome, brother. Appreciate you. Broncos country truly is not a geographic location. It is a state of being, and another guy that exemplifies this reality is Ethan, our great super chat superstar and friend, aka the DWI guys. If you're in a pinch in the greater London region and you find yourself in need of some DWI representation, you know who to call. The DWI guys. Thank you, bro. Very generous of you. Seriously. Love you so much, Ethan. This show, all the shows, especially Broncos for Breakfast, throwing down the support and keeping the conversation going. Saying, great show, Priest. Thoughts on trading both Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. Alan Lazard flirtation shows what Sean Payton is looking for in a wide receiver. Zach, your thoughts?
Again, what do I really say, Ethan? You've been doing this for so long, so consistently. Thank you so freaking much. No, I'm not trading both Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. I'm not trading Jerry Jeudy again unless the Broncos get 2 first-round picks or at minimum a first and the second. Courtland Sutton, they want to trade him for a 3rd-round pick. See you later. We had a good time. You're right, though, that the Lazard chase was a direct indictment on Courtland Sutton. His toughness, his route running, I think his dedication to the game, something that Courtland Sutton has let slip in recent years since that injury. I think that appeals to Sean Payton. He wants more of a Michael Thomas, a gritty type receiver. And Courtland Sutton, unfortunately now at this point of his career, is no longer that.
Yep. A Marcus Colston,
right?
A Michael Thomas. It'll be curious to see if these two end up sticking, exactly how they end up getting utilized by Sean Payton. I still remain very high on the possibility of, if the Broncos do keep them both, Sean Payton being like a kid in a candy store in terms of finding ways to maximize their playmaking ability. We did get James. We got this one on James. Thank you, James. Love you, big dog. Let's see, 52 minutes. We got to start rapid firing. Phil saying, I read that New England was offering Trent Brown and pick 46, assuming here he's saying for Jeudy.
Hell no.
Thoughts?
Hell no. The Broncos have their tackles. I mean, you acquire Trent Brown. What are you doing with Garrett Bowles? You just paid Mike McGlinchey to play right tackle, and getting a 2nd-round pick back on top of an aging tackle is not going to do it for me. For Courtland Sutton, absolutely. Not for Jerry Jeudy.
Agreed. Thank you, Phil. Love you, big dog. Larry, no filter, jumping in with a super chat. Thanks, Larry. Loving the shows this week, guys, and shout out to the busiest producer and host, Scott. Yes, Scott is a man of many, many talents. We are very grateful for what Scott does. And thank you, Larry. The Duchess again tonight saying with the super chat, I don't know about you guys, but I would like getting Shelby back if he's willing. I think we could use him. I know. I don't hate the idea, like, especially when you realize that the Broncos lost both Draymond Jones and Deshaun Williams. You get Zach Allen, but you need maybe one more guy. You got a couple young guys in Matt Henningsen and Uwazurike. I always butcher his first name, so I try not to attempt it unless I must. But so, there's some upswing, there's some potential there, but a proven vet. I guess you still have Mike Purcell too. So for now, anyway, your thoughts, though?
I mean, people are overrating I feel the loss of Deshaun Williams because he had no business starting last year. When he was announced as a starter, Chad, you and I just looked at each other and shook our heads and scratched our heads as to why. We understand DJ Jones and Draymond Jones, but Deshaun was like the misfit of that group. They need a depth player. So if they want to go out and bring back Shelby Harris for a rotational role, I have no problem with that. They want to go through the draft, I have no problem with that either. But you brought up the two names we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. You invested draft picks, and George Payton went out and sought these players specifically, Henningsen and Awuzurike. Let's let the younger guys develop and step up into those roles and not, overspend on an aging veteran.
Lawrence, thank you, buddy. He says, do you guys think the meaning wanting to be a Bronco forever has lost its power for our players, as in current ownership don't care about that and care more about who's out there? I just think that Bronco forever, it's not just the Broncos, it's pick professional team X across every sport. That's just becoming more and more rare due to the nature of how all professional sports teams have opened up the strictures of free agency and all that stuff. It's just, I think as we inch farther and farther into the future of the NFL, Zach, mercenary life and mercenary mindset chasing and could you blame them? Honestly, Lawrence, think about it. If you put yourself in their shoes and you're talking about the prospects of just multi-generational wealth, you want to chase that. You got a short window to get it done. That's just the nature of the beast now, based on how things have changed with regard to free agency and whatnot. But I don't think it's necessarily a unique to the Broncos thing, Lawrence, is what I'm getting at. I think that's being a Bronco forever. That's the romanticism behind that sentiment. It obviously held a lot more power when they were a winning club. So like when a Von Miller said, I want to be a Bronco for life or whatever, held a lot more meaning when you had all these images of the Broncos achieving greatness with Von Miller making this play, that play, this splash, that one. But it's been a long time since the Broncos had something like that to really hang their hat on.
Yeah, Lawrence, nothing against you, but nothing lasts forever. And to think it might or could is a little naive. It comes down to money. Like everything else, unfortunately, in this world does. The NFL is a business. I mean, you mentioned Von Miller, but who would have thought Tom Brady would change teams? Who would have thought Peyton Manning would change teams? Nothing lasts forever, and players now are lucky to spend a decade with the same team, let alone their entire careers. It's just the nature of the beast.
Plus, let's be honest, players for the longest time, especially in the league, and still very much to this day, are chewed up and spit out by NFL clubs. And so I can't blame them for capitalizing on opportunities to enrich themselves and make the most of their short playing careers. Their lives are going to stretch into their 60s, 70s, 80s, hopefully, God willing, but they're only going to be able to play until, their early 30s for most of them at the best case scenario. So they're going to do what's best for them. James, what I meant was Judy for a first rounder, Sutton, Patrick Hamler, get Hopkins, no first round pick, keep Judy. You? Hold on. I think what he's saying, I saw a previous one too. Judy for a first round pick or keep him from another one at 651. I'm still not quite sure, Zach, based on the syntax, what he's getting at. Do you know exactly what he's trying to ask us?
To use the pick they get from Sutton to trade for DeAndre. I don't know what he's trying to say, but the long and the short of my response is hang on to Jerry Jeudy. And if you want to, if you get a good enough offer, then you can let go for Sutton.
I think here's what he's saying. Jeudy, you trade him for a first rounder, and then you trade Sutton, Patrick, and Hamler to get Hopkins. And then if you don't get a first rounder in exchange, you keep Jeudy. I think that's what you're saying, James. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That wouldn't work on Madden. So
Fonzie, bro, thank you. Alex Singleton has a group chat with the other linebackers where they poke fun at each other. Seems like they have good camaraderie. Yeah, he's, I think, a really good culture guy and is a pretty good compliment to Josie Jewell. So it'll be interesting, too, to see how the way the board has shifted for Jonas Griffith, what the future holds for him. Charms, how do we stack up now in the AFC West? I think we finally get some wins against KC and Vegas for show. Cautiously optimistic this year. Zach, I think it's a good opportunity to remind everybody that, let the 2010 Philadelphia Eagles serve as the prime exemplar that no team wins a Super Bowl in free agency. But I'll tell you this, very pleased with the steps forward the Broncos have taken with the coaching staff hires and what they've done so far early on in free agency. I think they're trending in the right direction. All of these, though, it still boils down to, is Russell Wilson washed or not? Can Russell Wilson be redeemed? I think he can, but we won't know it until we see it.
I don't care what anybody says. You can be the biggest Broncos hater. You cannot deny they got exponentially better at coaching and with their personnel on the field, with their players. So there's a lot of optimism there. We won't know, though, until we know when the season starts. But can we, for 1 second, just laugh at the Vegas Raiders and what Josh McDaniels is doing, trading? Essentially, they got rid of Derek Carr and Darren Waller, and they got back the 100th overall pick in the draft. So McDaniels learned nothing in terms of team building from his time in Denver, and I just love what he's doing in Vegas now. FTR.
It's what happens with a lot of people who are told their whole lives, you're the smartest, most handsomest little boy in the world, and they buy into that and maybe get a little over creative, over active in buying into some of their what people say about them. Mike, thanks, brother. Are we I think we're about out of time, guys. We just crossed the 1 hour mark. So much love and respect to Albert for joining us tonight, and all of you Super Chat superstars. I'm going to shout you out here in a minute, but before we dip, we got a few messages for you, so don't leave quite yet.
Yeah, we have a few more supers. We got Cody jumping in. Thank you so much, Cody. Good to see you this evening. $5 super. He says Shelby Harris coming back could be nice. He has bat down passes that they come in clutch every now and then. He's an average player with upside flashes. Yeah, I mean, his terms, pass deflection ability was literally won the Broncos games at certain points. I liked him a lot. You and I advocated heavily for him to get his multi-year extension with the Broncos. The good thing now, you traded him in the Russell Wilson deal. You can get him back for a fraction of the cost, and you still have the quarterback. It's in terms of two things. Does George Payton, who traded him, want him back? And does Shelby Harris, who got traded by Payton, want to come back?
I think he might want to, if for no other reason than to reunite with Vance Joseph, who basically resurrected his career, gave him the chance to resurrect his career after he kind of washed out with the Raiders, etc. But Patriot Tex wanting to know, do you think letting Draymond Jones go was a culture move? Might have had something to do with that, maybe, because, he was he's kind of a curmudgeon-y type guy, when you put a microphone in front of his face. But those guys, their public-facing kind of persona or energy isn't always exactly the way they're perceived in the locker room. But with Draymond, no, I just think it came down to more than culture. It came down to, we don't think he's worth what he wants and what the market is willing to give him. So we're going to go ahead and let him hit the bricks.
What do you get, 17 a year from Seattle? I don't think if that's the case, I don't think the Broncos went anywhere near that number. They might have given him, 13 a year. And that's what I feel, no offense to Draymond, that's what I feel he's worth. He's a good player, but he's not a foundational player that warrants what he was seeking. So, disagree with me if you must, but I think the Broncos made a smart decision not giving in and overpaying him.
Lawrence, thank you for the super chat, bro. He says, I like what we've done, just don't like Peyton anymore, and I hope we move on. He's talking about George Payton. Well, I don't know, bro. I'm still mostly stoked on George Payton. I guess letting certain players walk that can hurt sometimes, but my advice would just be think about the realities of the business side of that's just the way NFL business works nowadays. Thank you for the super. James saying, all right, keep Sutton, Patrick Hamler.
Take 3.
Get Hopkins, somebody reasonable. Trade Judy for a first, right, if you can. If not a first-round pick, then you keep what we have. Okay, so that's much more clear. Zach, your thoughts for him. And Bradley, good to see you, the bus driver in the house. Thank you for the super sticker. Your thoughts for James, and then we'll dip out.
I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is still under contract with Arizona, right? I mean, you're saying to trade for him and then to trade Jerry Jeudy for a first-round pick. And if you can't get DeAndre Hopkins, then keep Jerry Jeudy and keep the players that you have. It's a little convoluted. I feel at this stage of their careers, don't, take this the wrong way. What Jerry Jeudy could be if he's still ascending, if he's still first entering his prime, could be more beneficial and functional for the Broncos than, late stage DeAndre Hopkins. So I'm status quo. You're muted.
Ethan, bro, throwing down at the 11th hour, another super generous super chat, bro. Thank you, bro. Seriously, thank you. He says, there's no question now, this is Sean Payton's team. And I agree with that. And I want to direct this back to Lawrence Rivera, which is, it really is. Yeah, Ethan, you made Chad speechless. More ways than one. It really is Sean Payton's team, I think. And there's still, Zach, that part of me that wonders if George Payton will outlive his usefulness to Sean Payton after the draft comes and goes. We'll see, because if you go back in time to 2012, exactly a year and 1 month or 2 months or whatever it was, after John Elway had taken over as the top football executive in Denver, quietly after the 2012 draft, general manager Brian Zanders was handed his walking papers, and then John Elway was officially at the controls of all that stuff. So I'm not predicting that's what happens. I'm just curious to see if something similar happens in that way. But thank you, Ethan. Love you, bro.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ethan. It's a results-based business, and at least on paper thus far, I'd say the results are working out pretty favorably in the Payton and Payton combo. And that's why, Lawrence's comment from before, he wants George Payton fired, but he's otherwise okay with the direction of the team. It's like, okay, what were George Payton's biggest whiffs? Because we know he's an expert drafter. We know he's aggressive in free agency. His biggest mistakes, quote unquote, were hiring Hackett and trading and I guess paying for Russell Wilson. Well, Russ is still incomplete, and we all have hope that he'll look a lot better under Sean Payton. Hackett was fired and not only replaced, but replaced by Sean Payton, one of the best coaches of this generation. So it's tough for me to advocate for Payton's firing. I think he's still one of the better GMs in the NFL, and his best is still yet to come this offseason because he's such an expert scouter and drafter and talent evaluator. I'm hanging on to George.
Thank you, Ethan. Thank you, Michael. Love you guys. Seriously, your generosity and support knows no bounds. We are very blessed and very grateful for each and every one of you. But we got to get going tonight.
Yes, thank you for a very energetic and frenetic and a great way podcast. That was, though, the MHH Pod. Follow us if you're not doing so already at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our excellent producer at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch, like Bucka merch, anything, check out our inventory at mhhmerch.com when you can. And also go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. Be sure you're liking that page and following that page. And I see a new banner here. If you're on Instagram, follow us at mile_high_huddle for all your MHH needs and wants. If you're not doing so as well, go to Apple Podcasts and leave your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some of that merch each and every month. But if anything, guys, please sub, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Shout out to these great Super Chat superstars and supporters tonight, starting with Facebook, since that's where Albert hangs his hat. And big thanks, of course, to Mile High Dutchie, Albert Noppers, for spending some time with us. Michael Ronquillo throwing down just some massive, generous stars. Love you, bro. Lawrence Rivera, Malcolm Diego, Phil McLaughlin, Josh Packer, George Fox, and Keith Brugman. And then on YouTube, the Mile Highlander himself, Steve Armstrong, Loyal, the Smokin' Hustler, Guyla Maples, George, Gary, the Duchess, James, many times James, Charms, multiple times, Patriot Tex, Larry No Filter, the Duchess multiple times, Renardo throwing down huge, Ethan throwing down huge multiple times, Fonzie, Cody Dubb, Lawrence Rivera, Bradley, the bus driver who we've gotten to meet, thankfully. Much love and respect to each and every one of you. Thank you so much. And by the way, Go listen to the brand new single that just dropped today, in fact, from Bridge of the Gap. It's called Up. Go check it out. Go check out my Twitter. You can find the link, or just open up Spotify or Apple Music, whatever you listen to your tunes. Bridge the Gap, Up. Let me know your thoughts on the song.
And we got a last-minute buzzer-beating super from James Richard, $5. Thank you so much, James. Don't know why Broncos fans are happy with Sutton and Judy's performance thus far. Ridiculous. Listen, Jerry Jeudy is still ascending. Chad, you realize that as well. He kind of broke out last year, and the best is still yet to come. He was a top 15 pick for a reason. But Courtland Sutton indisputably has fallen off since the injury, and not just physically, I think mentally and psychologically as well. Doesn't seem like he's much of a team player anymore. That's why I'm okay with moving him if the price is right.
That's the caveat, if the price is right. So it's got to be something worth more than what impact he might bring to you when the season rolls around. We'll see.
But that was our podcast for this evening. We're off until Sunday night. Have a great start to your weekend, guys. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.